So here's with me today Antal Posthumus online. And when we started this work, he worked for the National Archives of the Netherlands, the National Archives. And he was a distinguished member of the EAG Archiving by Design Working Group, and also the Dutch DUTO team you will hear about. But during the summer, he moved on to the text administration of the Netherlands, and now he's a senior advisor to the chief data officers. And Antal will help me with this presentation. So we will talk about the starting point, then a little bit about what is archiving by design, because there can be people most likely remotely in the WebEx who doesn't know anything about it. Then the problems we identified to be solved, then about the Dutch DUTO framework, the solution in the reference architecture, and our future plans. So as I said 30 minutes before, the original goal of the reference architecture was to help our stakeholders to position their processes, tools, software services by providing them with this reference point. Also, it helped us to position our E-ARK things. But when we were at the end of the work with the first version, we thought that we wanted to say something, at least something, about this new initiative. Back then, that was really new. Archiving by design, or sometimes called sustainable access. So we have started to create a view for that. This is a strategy layer view. And the strategy layer elements in Archimate are basically a value stream. What we used are a value stream. On the left, it starts with designing an information system, then the active life cycle, then manage in the passive life cycle, and access at the other scale, at the end of the scale. And most importantly, capabilities, organized into capability groups. So these are the capabilities we have identified. You couldn't read it anyway. Okay, great. We have identified, and this view is included in our first, in the first version of the model. So this is our starting point. And in this first year, we were focusing on these two things, as I said. So please, Antal. We cannot hear you.
I should put on my microphone. Thank you, István. Both of us presenting here today is a very nice example of how networks actually work. Networking facilitated by the European Commission working on archives actually works. We got into touch, we started thinking about connecting both initiatives with each other, which led to these results. But back to the EAG ABD working group on archiving by design. The EAG has a mission to ensure cooperation and coordination in matters relating to archives, and the EAG advises the Commission on issues that affect archives. And one such initiative was the subgroup, which formed somewhere in 2019, and that was also the year that the group visited the Netherlands to get acquainted with the DUTO framework as it was then. That has resulted in a very exchange of thoughts and concepts which has led to the working group publishing a white paper on archiving by design, using the definition that you might be able to read on screen. Otherwise, I'll read out aloud. The definition of archiving by design is: during the design or adjustment of information system, the appropriate measures are taken to ensure that the information becomes and stays sustainable accessible. So archiving by design is a method, and the key concept within it is sustainable accessibility, which transfers to English. English is its sort of sustainable accessibility of public information. The focus is public information, government organizations. The next slide will show that we not only had some theorization about and conceptualization about this theme, but also we've come up with a practical methodology, which we call the ABD scan, and we've issued a guidelines for using this scan, and it mainly focused on keeping and making information accessible in a sustainable manner, and therefore information system must be set up accordingly. And these measures are needed to do so are at the moment when you start developing a system, purchasing a system, or when you're trying to redesign it or revamping it or migrating information from the old to the new system. That would be the ideal situation where you want to think about archiving by design and implementing sustainable accessibility. And that's for the introduction on archiving by design, and I'll give back the words to István.
Thank you. So we had several issues at the beginning, problems to be solved. First of all, archiving by design deals with any kind of information system and with the whole information life cycle. On the other hand, so far in this community and in the reference architecture, we were talking about these two parts: managing information for the long term and providing access to information. And this is where OAIS really helps us. And this is what the original e-archiving reference architecture was about. But when talking about archiving by design, we have to say something about the design phase and about the active phase of the information life cycle. The second was about our mandate. We think that we are only mandated to say anything about digital archiving, being the e-archiving initiative and the e-archiving reference architecture. So we decided that we will focus on digital archiving. We want to say a lot of things about a lot of things, but if we say something, we say it from a digital archiving point of view. The other problem was what we really have to work with. And we could find too what Antal has talked about, the ABD scan method. This is one result that we could work with. But most importantly, the Dutch DUTO framework is a complete framework or a framework constantly developed and being completed and it's really based on the sustainable access approach, and Antal will give us more detail on that.
Yes, thank you. So in 2019, the EAG subgroup on ABD visited the Netherlands to learn more about the DUTO framework as it was then. We started with it in 2016. And we've received feedback from the wider community in the Netherlands, which has led us to start with an update of the DUTO framework. And that started somewhere like 2 years ago. And at the moment, this month, there's a public review in the Netherlands for the DUTO framework, and this feedback will be translated and edited to the text when necessary. And somewhere in the first quarter of 2024, it should be able to be approved. But the key thing to take away here is that we've started thinking from values, and you see the triangle here with public value being at the core, but it's necessary to have the other aspects as legitimacy and organization at present as well, to have a stable framework in the midst of sustainable, accessible public information in order to support the values of public sector organizations. And sustainable accessibility of information means that it adheres to these 6 quality requirements you see on the screen over there. And these quality requirements are the connection between the EAG white paper, the ABD scan, and the former and the current DUTO framework. And on the next slide, I can show you what this new framework is, how it is organized. Of course, as you already saw, the values and the quality attributes. It also consists of some general preconditions. And those 3 are also the connection, as I said already, to the EAG initiatives on ABD. So you would recognize those in the white paper and the scan guidelines. But the connection to the EAG, the e-archiving reference architecture, is on the level of the DUTO process model and the DUTO functions model. And those processes you see on the right in the yellow columns, and within those processes, DUTO functions, sustainable accessibility functions. Sustainable accessibility is the translation of DUTO in the Netherlands. And those blue parts are the functions that correspond with each of these processes. And those are used by the e-archiving reference working group to make the connection between the active life cycle of data within public sector organizations to the long-term digital archiving perspective. And of course, there are some other parts in the DUTO framework, like DUTO services, which creates the DUTO services modeled on the business layer and the application layer, making the DUTO framework also very accessible for architects. And each process is also very well detailed, designed in Archimate views, but it would be too much detail to show them here. But on the next slide, there's also a very important aspect of the new DUTO framework, which was an actual reaction to the feedback we got, because the feedback was, please make it more practical. How do we implement sustainable accessibility into our systems design? So we've took inspiration from a lot of ISO standards, which you also see here, also MOREC, but also local Dutch guidelines. And with these, we came up with model requirements that you can select from in order to implement during systems designs, which makes the model requirements a very good starting point for your organization to translate these to your specific organizational specific situation, making it a very practical and applicable framework. So, and that's for now the most important thing I wanted to say about the DUTO framework and the connection with the reference architecture.
Thank you, Antal. So we used this DUTO framework, and especially the DUTO function description and the DUTO functions themselves. And these are we have created a set of business layer views, and an overview of the DUTO function, then one view for each of the DUTO function functional groups I will show you. Then we've created a DUTO function to OAIS mapping. And also we started to model the DUTO scan method, or the DUTO scan process. So on the left, you can see the original strategy view. We used the same elements. We were thinking about whether they were okay, but we found them surprising. It was at least surprising to me that we thought 1 year after, or 1.5 years after we've done that they are still okay. And we just organized them differently, that in the middle the Duto functions could fit. And these are the Duto functions in function groups. And we have created these five views to registration, destruction, migration, keeping and retention and access Duto functional groups. And within the Duto functions and all the connections to the capability elements of the strategy layer. So these views can give you a picture what the reference architecture has to do to each of these function groups. That means what are at least strategy layer elements, what is the connection to the whole information life cycle. This is another view, another approach we took. This is the Duto functions aligned under the OAIS functional entities. We had to add the first two columns are pre-ingest and out of OAIS, what we called out of OAIS, so that's before everything. And here one can see where which Duto function connects to which part of the OAIS. And we have just started to model the Duto scan method. We want to go on with that one when we know two instances in Sweden or two initiatives that has been started or about to start in Sweden and in Slovenia. And with the help of these or the feedback from those processes and the help of the people doing that and the experiences they gain, we want to deepen these processes. And with that, I'm actually going to the future plans part. So as I said, we plan to create a new version. These views will be in that new version. That will be also an online web application. We would like to deepen these Duto scans and possibly, that's in the future, not in that version, possibly reach the level of a real process diagram, a BPM and process diagram. We would like to add scenarios, as we have scenarios for the current business views. We would like to have scenarios on archiving by design. What we can think of now is a distributed archiving scenario and an archiving at the source scenario, because the third scenario that the data will be transferred to an archive anyway is not known to all of us. What is still missing is harmonizing the Duto attributes and values with the motivation aspect of the reference architecture. So this is something we also want to do in the near future. And I'm happy to announce that mission impossible accomplished. And thank you very much.